Hello there, Ben Bowers, the Spirit Specialist, and I am here today to talk to you about the latest launch from one of my favourite Scotch whisky distilleries. This is Lochlea Fallow Edition, the third of 4 seasonal releases that follow the farming year, because Lochlea is a working farm as well as a distillery. Fallow was, out of the 3, probably my favourite, but I'm always a sucker for a big sherry bomb. Now, the second crop is slightly different to the first, and I will go into that shortly. But I also have a tiny little bit of the first crop. So not much, as you can see, but that should be enough to give me a side-by-side comparison, because there is a difference from the second to the first. This is a remainder of a tasting that I did earlier this year with John Campbell, who dialed in from Canada, and also Patrick. Now, what I'm hoping to do is do exactly the same early next year, once Ploughing has launched. We'll have probably the barley, unless something else comes out, but also their cask strength, which came out just before I did the tasting, we never had on. So I need to use just a tiny little bit of this to make sure that there is enough left for the tasting. But fortunately, because I had a little bit left over, this does mean that I can do side by side and see how it's developed over the course of a year. But before I tell you all about that, let me give you some background information about the distillery, if you've not seen any of my other Lochlea videos, and also what the difference is between the second and the first crop.
The Lochlea Distillery is a conversion of the farm buildings at Lochlea Farm, situated 8 miles south of Kilmarnock, and at which the world-famous Scottish writer and poet Robert Burns lived and worked from 1777 to 1784. Plans for a distillery by the current owner Neil McGeoch were approved in 2014, and whisky production commenced in August 2018. Malcolm Rennie, who'd previously been distillery manager at the likes of Bruichladdich, Ardbeg, Kilchoman and Annandale, initially worked with Neil as a consultant before coming on board full-time to oversee the birth of the whisky. However, he then left to join the rebirth of the Rosebank distillery in October 2021 and was replaced by John Campbell, who had previously been the distillery manager at Laphroaig for 16 years. The distillery is another new whisky venture who are producing a grain-to-glass spirit. They grow their own barley in fields literally over the road and have their own water source. The bottle itself features embossing referencing the tyre tracks that surround the farm as well.
Sowing and running through harvest, fallow and finally ploughing, Lochlea Fallow Edition second crop deviates from the previous year's release by maturing in barrels that previously held Pedro Ximenez Sherry, as well as using first fill Oloroso Sherry casks. The first crop was matured solely in ex-Oloroso. The split is roughly 55% in favour of PX casks, and the whisky is bottled at 46% ABV.
Right, so let me just pour out this first crop sample and see if I can eke a little bit for maybe when the third crop comes out, we can do side by side. Little disclosure, I actually am filming this for the second time because for some bizarre reason, I absolutely had it locked in my head that the first crop was just PX and the second crop is PX and Oloroso. So I actually filmed a video review. I had more of this available. I filmed a video yesterday where I started talking about the fact that, the Oloroso has done something different to it, and it's not, it's the PX. The Oloroso is the consistency all the way through. The PX is the introduction. Now, I am an absolute sucker for anything PX on it, Pedro Ximenez. Anything that involves Pedro Ximenez in whiskey, I'm probably going to like it. Let me just make sure I differentiate between the first crop and the second. So, I have sort of done a side-by-side. I do know there is a difference, but I'm going to try and go through it as though, just pretend that this is the first time that I've had it. So I'm going to look at the second crop first, the latest release, then I will do the first and the second side-by-side. So, on the nose, bottled at 46%, as the first crop were. Now, there was a slight difference. I think it was the Sowing first crop was 48, but everything since has been 46. Lovely, dark, concentrated fruits on here. Prune is the overriding aroma here, but we've got raisins, we've got a touch of sultanas. There's even a slight high note of like raspberries. You know, there's red fruits in there. There's kind of a slight summerberry note, but overriding that is dark fruits. Plums, like poached plums, definitely prunes, damsons, that sort of thing. Those dark fruits. Little hint of spice in there, but not like that. It's fruit and nothing else almost. I wouldn't even go so far as saying fruit cake. I'd just say dark fruits. Almost to the point where you get those, in the UK, they're yo-yos, these sorts of things, where it's these sweets for kids, but it's concentrated fruit juice that go in, like they're either in a strip or in a wheel or rounds or heart shapes or whatever, but it's that concentrate of dark fruits on here. Really, really impressive nose. So rich and warm. Absolutely lovely. And then on the palate, that really carries through. But as I've said on previous videos, one of the things I love about Lochlea is this house character that runs all the way through. And having had this conversation with John and Patrick, that very much is evident in the new make. This element of cereal, of not just malt. I mean, there is maltiness there, but it's also other grains as well. There is this feel of wheat and fields of corn and that sort of thing. You know, there's a lot of malt whiskies that go, oh, there's a very malty feel to it. And there is on this, but you get other cereals coming through as well. So on occasion, sometimes I say that Lochlea has a feel or a character or an evocation of grain. And I don't mean a grain whiskey. I mean grains in general, as in that whole category of not just barley, but also wheat and corn and rye and everything else like that. Barley is very much the dominant malt, the feel in this maltiness, this grain feel. But it's still here despite the intensity of the fruit. The fruit and the malt and the barley and everything like that, the Lochlea and the fruit work so well together. The balance is absolutely impeccable. It introduces a touch of spice. That the pruniness is not quite as full on as it is on the nose, but it's still there. It's still what I would call a sherry bomb. Now, let's see where we are with the first crop. So, first crop is that. Second crop is that. Let's just look at the noses. Instantly slightly lighter, slightly fresher. A bit more of a, not an astringency, a sharpness is kind of doing it a disrespect. You know, it's a fantastic whiskey, but just compared to the second crop feels more complex, rounder, slightly richer, slightly softer. Not massively so, but there is a definite higher feel to this that I'm guessing is literally just the age. Maybe the fact that you've got the PX in the second one as well. But I'm sure that a lot of that difference between the two on the nose is just the age difference between it. And then on the palate, on the first crop, you get fruit, but it's not as dark as the second. You don't necessarily get prunes, you get more raisin sultanas. And you get a slight disconnect, it feels like. Again, this is having had the second crop. This wasn't what I was getting when I first tried it last year, because I just thought it was fantastic. And you get more of the Lochlea light cereal notes coming through and less of the fruit. Whereas the second crop is much better balanced. Whereas, let's see if I can do this. So we have dark fruits here on this side of the scale, which is your sherry maturation. We've got this Lochlea character of grains and barley and malt and fields of cereals. And on the first crop, it's very much in favour of the Lochlea character with this fruitiness underlying it and lifting everything. And what's happening on the second crop is it's being much better balanced. There's depth, there's more depth and complexity and richness and roundness, I'm not even sure that's a word, than there is on the first crop. The first crop just feels slightly disconnected, whereas it's almost like the PX element and just that extra little bit of aging is building a bridge between the two and leveling them off and making it much more kind of like dancing with each other rather than one slightly overriding it. It's so full of dark fruit. It's got that little touch of spice, which I think is partly the youthfulness, partly the cask maturation, partly the kind of lighter cereal style that Lochlea brings. introduces this spiciness that makes it, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's Christmas cake, but it's so fruity and so dark and so warming that this probably is going to be my Christmas whiskey, in terms of I will pick something that I'm going to go, do you know what, I'm going to save that, and then on Christmas evening, either the kids are getting ready to go to bed or they've gone to bed and it's about 9 o'clock at night and you've done all the Christmas presents and there's just clutter everywhere and you've had your meal and you've seen the family and everything's been hectic, and it's that kind of, oh, it's done, finally, you know, we can relax. We haven't done these 3 months beforehand of absolute craziness. And it's getting a dram that just kind of is warming and comforting, but maintains that festive feel. It's a belter. It's an absolute belter. Again, I thought the first was really good, and this is an improvement. And it's so good to be able to try side by side. Unfortunately, I have a little bit left that I'm going to get some parafilm around that because that top is broken. So just to risk the oxidization, I'm going to put some parafilm around this. And then hopefully, if we get to a third crop, I'll be able to do a side by side, and we'll be able to see if there's any continued development, because there is absolutely development here. There's clearly been a, right, what's the first doing? What do we want to do with the second? The addition of the PX really does make a difference. Yes, I probably am biased, but I do think it adds an extra dimension that really benefits the whole flavor profile. So if you're looking for something warming, rich, slightly sweet, fruity, pruny, raisiny, Christmassy, festive-y, all of that stuff, that is absolutely the one for you. I still have some stock left. It launched yesterday, which is when the video was supposed to come out. And unfortunately, I didn't know, my head was going, oh, it was PX and now it's got Oloroso in it. No, it's the other way around. I still have, because I'm looking at the shelf at the moment, this is the 27th of October that this will go up, hopefully, if I can edit it through the day. Day before my birthday. I have a sale on at the moment, which is 20% off certain lines until the 31st of October, of which includes Lochlea Sowing Edition Second Crop and the cask strength as well. And I still have the harvest. So if you were looking at getting the whole of the second crop, I still have one bottle of Sowing left, which is on a 20% price cut, as well as a couple of bottles of harvest, and you can get your fallow, and then you just need to wait for the ploughing and you've got the entire set. Or keep an eye out for early next year when ploughing comes out. Once ploughing's out, we've got a date for that. I will then try and lock in a date for the second crop worth of tasting of Lochlea. So head to the website, www.spiritspecialist.com, have a look at the sale, but then also grab a bottle of this. I don't know if I can get any more, and I only got a small allocation. So, you know, grab it while you can, but it's absolutely brilliant. This is still my favorite out of the whole seasonals, and the rest of them are really, really good. So head to the website, check out the sale, also get the Lochleas, and see what else I've got on there, because we're getting into Christmas, so there are going to be some exciting things going on, and some tasting events early next year too. That is me done. I shall see you in the next video. Cheers.